Hey everyone, this is Emilio here. I just wanted to talk about a real estate transaction that I'll possibly close. It's a wholesale deal in the next probably 2 weeks. Um, the deal was I contacted the seller, and initially we couldn't agree on terms. So I followed up with the seller. 45 days later, we still couldn't agree on terms. And then the seller called me back about 30 days after that. So that's about 75 days initially after I initially talked to the seller. So make sure you follow up with your sellers. And when the seller called me back, the seller was ready to sell, and the seller was highly motivated at the time. So the seller calls me back and says, Emilio, I need to sell this property. I know you initially wanted, I think it was $35,000, but I wanted 45 or 50, and that we couldn't agree on terms. But I'm now ready to sell. I will, sell at 35. And then I told the seller, well, 35 was 45 days ago. Let me run my comps and make sure that's still the story. There may be updated comps that uh, that may allow me to pay you more or less, depending on what the comps say. So I ran my comps. I actually got the deal tied up at $29,000, which was great. And so I'm thinking in my head, this is a home run deal. I'm gonna market this at 37.5 and make a quick $7,500. So I thought in my mind, because I know the area, I thought I could sell the house in probably 2 hours. So I started calling my buyers, and so I sent my buyers through the house, and no one wanted the house, and I don't know why. And certain houses don't sell well because it might be the location, it might be the neighbors, or I don't know. My buyers just didn't want the house, and I couldn't figure out why. So I told the seller that would close in about a month or so, but 2 weeks went by and I still couldn't find the buyer. But so I didn't want to keep the deal tied up, so I called back the seller and told them, "Hey, Mr. Seller, I, I know we got this deal tied up at $29,000, but as my contract says, it's contingent upon my money partner, my business partner's approval, and my money partners went through the house and we just couldn't get the numbers to work. I'm gonna have to back out of the contract. So I'm sorry." And the seller was, angry, understandably, and as was I, because I couldn't wholesale it. So the seller was like, "Okay, fine," but the key is I communicated with the seller and I told him exactly what was going on. So then this was probably at 10 a.m. Probably right around 1 p.m. 3 hours later, I have another buyer calling me saying, "Hey, I really want the deal. I know you're advertising at 37.5, but I could only do 5,000, 35. Will you take the deal?" And I told him, "Hey, if you're willing to deposit your earnest money, it'll be non-refundable earnest money at title. I could possibly do the deal. I'll have to check if the house is still available." So the buyer said that they'll deposit the money ASAP. So as soon as I got the commitment from the buyer, I called back the seller and told him, "Hey, Mr. Seller, my business partner was looking at the numbers again, and I think we can make the deal work. I don't know why he told me we couldn't make it work, but I think I think he got the numbers mixed up. I want to apologize first of all, and I called you back as soon as I found out." That's the way I put it to the seller. Sorry, I called. So can we still do the deal? We'll close. And I told him I'd deposit the earnest money ASAP. So the seller's like, yeah, definitely. So I got, so right now we got the deal tied up in escrow. My end buyer is in for 35. I'm gonna pick up the deal at 29, and make a quick 6. So I don't know. I think I have it at 29 or 29.5. Doesn't matter. But we're getting the deal done. When you have multiple deals, you don't remember numbers on each deal. So, but it's right around between $5,000 and $6,000 on an assignment fee on that deal. So, the key is always there are two things you need to learn from this. You always want to follow up, because the money is always on the follow up marketing. You're rarely gonna get a seller who says, "Yeah, I want to sell the house" on the very first call. Okay, you always want to follow up every 30 to 45 days, and just have small talk. And number two, if you're wholesaling and if you're doing volume, you're not going to be able to move all your properties, okay? And you will have to cancel some contracts. But when you do cancel your contracts, make sure you cancel it in a way where it's amicable, and you could come back to the seller and get that in case you find a buyer, just like I did in this situation. In case you find a buyer, even 2 days down the road, you're able to call the seller and say, hey, we actually made a mistake on our numbers, so can we still do the deal? Most sellers will probably say yes because they want to sell. If you have any questions or comments on anything that I said, make sure you post it underneath this video, and I'll make sure I'll get back with you. Thanks.